That's what we do. So anyway, we wanted to talk a little bit about Steve Harvey and his woes, for lack of a better term. And so we're going to read this story. It's pretty interesting. Again, should I tell you the moral of the story before we read the story? Here's what it is. I've had clients in a similar situation as Mr. Harvey, in that through no fault of their own, they find themselves owing the IRS money. I had a client who ran a business and had a trusted family member who was to pay payroll taxes. And it turned out that he wasn't paying the payroll taxes. He was taking the money for himself. And they had a very large payroll. So that money was a lot of money. And the owner is responsible for that money. They're a responsible party. And so even though it was stolen, that my client was found to be responsible for that. Very much was what happened here with Steve Harvey. So let's go to the story. So no wonder he has been one of the most hardworking men in television. Steve Harvey claims he paid IRS $650,000 a month for 7 years because accountants were ripping him off. I know there's some in the story, I think it says 4 years. It doesn't, I guess it matters, right? 7 years or 4 years at $650,000 a month is a lot of money. No, any way you shake it. So Steve Harvey had folks on social media baffled this week when the entertainment business's hardest working employee revealed that he owed the Internal Revenue Service millions of dollars at one point in his illustrious career. During a recent appearance on Tuesday, the Family Feud host returned to an account he has discussed previously about owing the IRS $22 million in 2008. My accountant died, and an accountant that worked for him called my lawyer and said, "We have a problem," he told the hosts. What a kind of a problem. The 65-year-old continued, "She had found on the floor all my tax forms for 7 years, signed with checks stapled to them." The longtime game show discovered that the people he hired to handle his finances were cashing the checks, keeping the money, and not turning in the tax forms. When asked how they could use checks that were signed out to the government, Harvey explained, "They didn't cash it. They took the money out of the account that matched the exact number." Harvey ultimately spent the next 7 years paying back $650,000 a month, including his current taxes and daily living expenses. Yet it wasn't the first time that Harvey opened up about his troubled finances. While talking to Yahoo News, who covered his tax troubles back in 2016, the West Virginia native revealed the incident happened shortly after he married his third wife. The television personality thought he would lose everything he ever had, including the former fashion designer. "I sat my wife down and she cried, and I held her, and I told her that we were going to be all right. I was going to get us out." The game show host kept his promise. "I just went to work. I took every gig and every contract, and I worked. I hung in there, and I had a big deal come through in 2012, and I got free, and it's been okay ever since." That's a long time ago. That's 10 years ago. Harvey's admission stunned fans who flocked to social media to discuss the news that they had just heard, including on one Twitter user who wrote, "Steve Harvey owing the IRS millions of dollars because of people were stealing from him and having to pay $650,000 a month for 4 years in some crazy..." I'm not going to use the word. I'm going to open up this. I'm also not going to read a lot of the tweets. I think that I don't know if tweets are really news, but never went to jail because he never missed a payment, bro, they added. Actually, he didn't go to jail because he didn't commit a crime. Owing the IRS money is not a crime. That's why he didn't go to jail. Even not filing your tax returns. They are things that they call a reasonable cause. He may have gotten a reasonable cause. Again, still responsible for the payments, still responsible for not filing. But there was some fraud here, and it was really not his fault, according to the story. Is this story accurate? As far as I know, it is. Can you imagine paying a monthly $650,000 bill while also keeping up with everyday life? Well, he owed $20 million because he made a lot of money. Okay. So, and then the penalties and interest. You might be able to get some of the penalties abated for reasonable cause because he was relying on a tax professional and who led him astray. And so he may have avoided some of the penalties, but none of the interest. You can't really avoid the interest because that's by statute. Steve Harvey has confidence that I never seen before in my life. This man is unstoppable. This dude had to pay the IRS $650,000 a month for 4 years because his accountant was stealing his check payments. He made every payment on time. That's $31 million. So I said I wasn't going to read. These are all tweets. So again, I'm not going to get into the tweets. But it's an interesting dichotomy in that so many celebrities who turn out that they owe the IRS money turn to some other way to pay them and don't just take it upon themselves to start, to pay him back. Again, Steve Harvey's kind of an unusual example in that he was making a lot of money. Although, as he mentioned, he was working, taking every gig he ever could to pay it back. And he did pay it back. There's a lot of good stories. And the IRS worked with him because they didn't have to. I don't know what kind of assets he owned. I would assume that he had homes and cars and other goodies that the IRS could have taken away from him. But they instead came up with a payment plan. I work with a lot of over the mean, higher income people. And sometimes the IRS is not as flexible or as helpful with them as they are with lower income people. And they really hold their feet to the fire and start taking assets away from people. I think sometimes unnecessarily, but that's just where we sit. And so I sometimes if you're a higher income, the IRS really doesn't have any patience for you. Again, this was an unusual situation. I don't know if he filed any charges. Probably could still file charges against the accounting firm, malpractice or something. They probably had malpractice insurance. I don't know what he did. I'm sure he had the right legal help to tell him what help him along the way and try to recover anything if it was possible to recover anything. May not have been. I don't know.